Hello, everyone. My name is Aya Chehab, and I'm a master's student in the program of Masters of Science in Urban Design and Planning. The title have already been said by Dr. Mohammed. Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to begin the presentation right now. So virtual reality, of course, an important part of the city, gives it a sense of community and character, or it is, of course, its history. And one way of acknowledging this heritage is by, of course, preserving the historical buildings and structures. Now, all buildings is supposed to be witnesses to the aesthetic and cultural history of a city, which helps people give a sense of place or connection to the past. So with the aid of virtual reality technology, which plays an important role in realizing telesensations, this can be achieved by three ways of communication. First, human-to-human communication, human-to-environment communication, and human-to-computer communication. Now, the purpose of virtual reality is the ability for human-computer communication to have a sense of interaction, such as the human-environment communication and the human-human communication, which has a long history of interaction. So this is what we aim to receive. Now, the restoration of history in all its forms, of course, preserves the identity, not only the nation's cultural worth, but four main components, which are the educational, environmental, economic, and social enhancement. Now, a famous phrase by Rebecca Carson says that if the purposes of museums, as we know them by now, is to build a bridge between the past and the present, then VR, of course, is the most innovative construction tools at their disposal, which means that virtual reality can be used as a tool and a technology that audibly and visually transports the users to another place or time. Now, unfortunately, after all this being said, despite the historical buildings' importance within the city, historical buildings are still almost all of the time subject to neglect, demolition, or being destroyed or forgotten. They are most of the time even replaced by other functions or other buildings. And this usually happens in the aftermath of disasters, whether natural disasters or human conflicts, which are the #1 cause for destroying our global heritage. Now, several challenges erupt from this issue, which negatively impacts the collective memories within the citizens in the city. Many techniques of historic preservations are essential, such as one, transforming old and deserted building into more modern facilities, as we've said before, replacing them, or another technique revolves around how VR is able to bring historical buildings back to life, which is what the paper mainly focuses on. Now, kind of a glimpse or the aim of this research is a summarization of what I've previously said, that historical building, when impacted by disasters, they're subject to neglect or demolition. And with the aid of digital technology, such as VR itself, revives the historical building to enhance the people's collective memory and their sense of belonging. The paper then assumes that VR will help people remember and mentally revive these historical buildings as they once the building blocks of the city. So experiencing historical buildings in the past give individuals the ability to fully immerse themselves in historical events, and one, create an archive for future generations to view these buildings, and two, enhance the people's collective memory. Now, these two, the aid of the three main components of VR, we are able to achieve them. Three main components of VR: visualization, immersion, and interaction, each with their own, of course, definition. Visualization is the able to look around. The immersion is self-explanatory. It's the ability to immerse itself, and interaction. Now, VR in the past few years have been known in several fields and been used in several fields, as we can see in the pie chart on the right. However, VR in education is still very, very scarce, and this is what the paper mostly focuses about. It focuses and adopts the educational approach for virtual reality to allow people and students or researchers to learn about their past or their city's historical background. According to the pie chart, only 4.3% of the papers are dedicated to VR and historical buildings. Now, how can we evaluate VR in the educational presence? It's the educational field. It's from the present, realism, and reality. Therefore, the presence and reality can be enhanced through higher sense of realism through VR. Now, in terms of technology, VR is kind of basic. It has input and output devices. Input devices is anything from a keyboard, joystick, and so on, while output devices is the ability for people to experience every aspect of a visual environment, including vision, sound, smell, and touch, although some senses are more important than other senses, as we will see later on. Now, VR has the potential to improve the history of education, as we've already said, through two main senses, which is the sight and sound, the simulation of a real environment for training and education. Now, the combination of virtual reality, which was explained before, and virtual and historical buildings is combined to known as virtual heritage, which is or VH. Virtual heritage is very important and is crucial to create 3D models with the aid of VR technology. And VH technology also aids to relive the past by offering an affordable way, as we've mentioned before, it's economically sustainable, an affordable way to visit and study lost historical sites. Virtual heritage settings are designed to preserve, replicate, and display history. We're going to see now 3 similar examples of what I've previously discussed of how historical sites are revived by VR. First, we have Rome. By Simon Young. He used the lithodomous VR. Here we can see the present state of Rome as it is right now. And here we have the before images of what he wanted people to view Rome as it was before. Also, Google, with the aid created a street view, so we can see the city of Ankara, which is one of the many examples found in Google Map and Street View. And finally, we have the Notre Dame Paris, which is another example by Targo, which is a company that is using right now immersive technology to capture the greatest historical site after, of course, being even prone to disaster, which is the fire that recently happened. And here we can see the exterior and the interior shots. Now, the methodology, we've already discussed the inductive method. Later on, we're going to capture some photos for the case study to be able to build the 3D model as it was before. The case study chosen in this paper is the Dome City Center, or known by the Lebanese people as the Egg, and we'll see why, because of its enormous structure at the time. It's located in downtown Beirut, and during the Lebanese Civil War, it was highly damaged, and a big part of it is demolished. And since that time, the Lebanese government left the building as a historical place. So now we're going to see this is where it is. Here it's the present state of the building right now. So we can see that it was created by architect Joseph Philip Karam, and this recreation center located in the heart of Beirut next to the iconic Martyrs Square as well. So it has a very iconic location. It was supposed to be a multi-use complex and the Beirut City Center. So we can see here the egg-like structure, and this is where the name was derived from. Now, why is it so significant? It has many components to be significant. First, it's a multifactorial compromise between its users. It acts as a mirror of its era, and thus a symbol of rebellion, revolution, and resilience. And it's changed purpose from being a luxurious attraction point, as it was viewed to be, to being a space of, unfortunately, a space of conflict. And its iconic location in downtown Beirut, which was in the line of demarcation, which divided the city into two opponents during the Civil War between the East and the West. And its unique structure as well at the time, which consists of platforms and pillars. Now we can see kind of a timeline of the egg itself. When the proposal and construction started in 1965, the Civil War ended. They had to demolish the tower, so a big part of it was as well gone. Here are some of the proposals that have not been implemented, of course, and most recently the disaster of Beirut Port. Then we started taking live photographs using the Trio camera and collecting photos from the archive. So here we can see the before photos from the archive. It was supposed to even be 2 towers. The only one tower was constructed and was later on demolished, as we've said before. And here we have the recent photos. Here we have the 2D and 3D data collection. We have the southwest view of the egg, which is the most important view, which here was supposed to be the tower right here. Unfortunately, it is no longer there. Then after collecting all this data, the 2D and 3D drawings and information, the building was then built in the Autodesk Revit. Okay, so here we can see the Revit, how it's being constructed. Here we can see the preliminary and the process of it being constructed. And here, the file was then converted into an OBJ file by the add-on OBJ importer for Autodesk Revit, which exports solid bodies and sketches. The OBJ file is then viewed in virtual reality for a more enhanced user experience within its environment in that past time. So here we can see how you can view it from similar view. Here is just the process of it before the tower was constructed. We'll continue on. So basically, by the OBJ file, it allows the people to view it even from a computer. So here we can see the view from a computer as well. But the paper mainly focuses about the project in VR Oculus. So here we can see myself experimenting the project building in the Oculus. So here we can see it even after being constructed and revived or mentally revived to allow people and students to educate them about the history of Beirut. And to allow them to rotate freely throughout the building and its environment. The Beirut City Center appears in VR so that users can explore and navigate and show how the city was once. Now, evaluation of the user's experience in the historical buildings, we allowed 20 people, mostly students, to experience this issue. Some felt they were more familiar to the city. They had a new perspective of the city. They even enjoyed it so much they felt emotional, where they felt a sense of belonging, and they saw it like they never saw it before. The sense of realism here in this case explains how the single participant was allowed to envision the structure and its grandeur within the city. And the viewpoint of users in virtual heritage environment varies, of course, depending on their technological skills. Here we have kind of a pie chart explaining the results or the main results that the evaluation that was analyzed. Some preferred incorporation of tangible characteristics, so they like to move things around. Users like the ability to educate themselves, and the gamepad for some was difficult to use. So as a conclusion of future work, the study looks at several viewpoints that are needed to create a 3D model and the process to integrate within a VR environment. Given that change in human needs throughout time calls for changes in the approaches of education. Of course, each time calls for a different level of needs. So therefore, VR in this case holds great power and infinite opportunities that allows people, especially for educational purposes, to widen their scope of knowledge and indulge within the built environment of historical buildings. Virtual reality can also serve the purpose to build a bridge that have been long gone, not only between the past and the present, but also between the site and the visitor. For the future work, we propose that more interactive hotspots for users to navigate freely within the space and the project and interact with the assets in the virtual environment. Given that Beirut is also a country which is in a constant state of emergency, it's crucial to create a VR archive to maintain the image of the city for generations that are yet to come. And finally, allow different variety of alternatives for handling the input devices for experiencing the surrounding and create a more immersive environment. And that is all. Thank you very much.